Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a discussion, a chatty video on niche fragrances, luxury fragrances, designer fragrances, indie fragrances. I'm going to be talking to you guys about my thoughts and opinions on marketing fragrances, corporate niche, indie fragrances, and the like. Now this video will be long because I've already pre-filmed this video like 5 times, and each time when I realized I was talking in circles, it was at the hour-and-a-half mark. Like obviously if you're looking at the timestamps, or not timestamps, but the length of the video, it's obviously not that long because it took a lot of editing. But I kind of wanted to sit down and talk to you guys about this. So if you'd like to know my thoughts and opinions on fragrances and how they're kind of identified, I guess that's the right term, then keep watching. All right, hi, my name is Kristen. I run this channel called Beauty Meow. Still don't know why I called it that, but it's been, I think 5 years, 6, I don't know how long I've been doing this. Anyway, if you like fragrance related discussion, conversations, reviews, check out my channel. Make sure to subscribe and also to hit the little bell to be notified when I have new videos. I'm a very informal channel. If you guys, this is your first time tuning in, I'm a fragrance collector. I like to review fragrances and talk to you guys fragrances from the viewpoint of a consumer, not an authority. So just letting you guys know that these are like consumer review videos, consumer stuff. I am not an authority on fragrance. I'm just a girl sitting on the floor talking about perfume. Now, this video will be long and chatty, so I'm just letting you guys know that. If you don't like those types of videos, I have thousands of other videos, check them out. But also, if you would like a very good, definitive, kind of like textbook definition in a way that's really entertaining and easy to absorb, check out Sebastian from Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews videos on talking about luxury, niche, and designer fragrances. He really breaks it down in a fantastic way, way better than I could, so check it out. I will have that linked below. And also some other videos talking about niche and designer fragrances. So I'm gonna have all those stuff linked below. Also, throughout this video, I will be referencing other videos I have done. If you hear me reference a video instead of me saying it's in the comment section below, it's already in the comment section. Like I said, I filmed this video like 5 times. And I just kind of wanted to refilm it from a fresh mentality so that way I could kind of trim it down, trim off the fat, so I'm not talking in circles for like 45 minutes about designer marketing. So if you would like a more long version of this video where I just sit down and talk into a screen for hours, let me know. But this is supposed to be a little bit more edited version. So again, all the resources or any video that I mention throughout this conversation will be linked below. We're going to start with what is niche, what is designer. Remember, this is an opinion piece. This is a conversation and discussion. So niche and designer, like when you look in the fragrance community, there's this great war. Which is better, niche or designer? There's like a fight, a battle. There are niche snobs, there are designer elitists. Really, whatever you like is fine. You know, you could only like designer, you could only like niche, you could only like luxury, you could only wear indie. You could be the type of collector that doesn't own a single full bottle, you only have samples and decants. You could be the type of collector that owns 1 bottle and 2 samples, or you could be a crazy and own over 900 bottles of perfume. And there's a lot of people that have more than I do. No way, none. However you want to appreciate and participate in this community doesn't make somebody better than somebody else. So if you like niche over designer, if you like designer over niche, if you have a smaller collection or larger collection, all of our opinions are valid in this community as long as nobody is being mean, and this door is still opening and I cannot wait to get rid of these cats. You're gonna see this coffee mug come up and down. I have been needing my caffeine. Also, do you like my coffee mug? This is one of my favorite mugs and I made it. Yes, I love that mug. So, what is niche? What is designer? I think the easiest way that I can kind of describe how I would describe niche and designer is if you close your eyes and I say the name of the brand, does in most cases, if it was like 100 people, would more people, with the majority of people, assume fragrance? So close your eyes and you think Gucci, close your eyes and you think Prada, close your eyes and you think Yves Saint Laurent or Jacobs. Obviously there's going to be fragrances in there, but a lot of people are going to be thinking about like the purses and the shoes and the handbags and the accessories and stuff like that. And then you get to the more trickier side. So like I love using Lancôme and Guerlain as examples because those are 2 houses that are very well known for their fragrances. So Guerlain has been in the game for a very long time. And I think that if I had to describe Guerlain, I would say that they are a niche designer fragrance because they do focus on beauty and skincare, and that is a huge part of their, their portfolio, their library of products. They're definitely more focused and taken more seriously and more well known for their fragrances. Lancôme is the opposite. I would say they're more designer niche fragrances. And they're more known for their skincare and their beauty items, but they are very well respected for their fragrances. And they definitely put a major focus on their fragrances too. You close your eyes, I think it would be like 50-50 with Lancôme, but I think it would just edge out more with Guerlain in regards to more people assuming fragrances. That's just my opinion on that. Then you've got the designer houses that have their niche level fragrances. You have like Armani Privé, the Maison Lancôme line. You have the Dior Privé. Most designer lines at some point either had a more premier line or currently have a more premier line. And those fragrances are considered niche fragrances in regards to their composition, rather more than who created the scent. So I think Tom Ford's fragrances are considered niche, even though that is a designer house. And I think that that's up to kind of like Guerlain and Lancôme, up to the person. Some people might consider, well, it was created by a designer house, so it's a designer scent, and other people might be like, no, I look at the composition of the fragrances, and that's definitely niche. Oh my goodness, that would no way make it to the main level of like a Macy's fragrance counter. So like Lancôme and Guerlain, the higher end lines are the more premier niche lines of these designer houses, could easily be considered niche or designer depending on the person that you're talking to, and maybe not even the person that you're talking to, but the specific scent. And then we have niche houses, and then we have the more independently owned niche houses, houses that do a lot of money, do a lot of sales, are ridiculously well respected. The production to create these scents go out huge. I can't put words together. Some of them are even sold in mainstream department stores. Some of them are just sold from their site or from like their site and then perfume stores. And I would view niche houses that are owned by conglomerates or bought out by conglomerates to not be designer fragrances, but to be corporate niche. So I'm going to throw out a few examples of some corporate niche fragrances. You have Acqua di Parma, you have Jo Malone, you have Atelier Cologne, bunch of others. I would even assume at this point Maison Francis Kurkdjian, his house, would be more corporate niche because I know it was bought out, but I still think he has a lot of relative control when it comes down to the fragrances that he produces. Now these are fragrance houses that are very well established, very accessible in regards to you can almost go to any Saks or Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom and smell something. And then some of these niche fragrances would even be sold at these department stores, but aren't corporately owned. I know that Nordstrom used to sell House of Matriarch. So, I mean, there's a lot of different like types of niche fragrances under the niche umbrella. I think designer fragrances are pretty much like the Lancôme Guerlain battle is like the biggest, like, is it not a designer? And then like the more premier lines, but there's niche, there's so many different ways it can be niche. So for some people, niche is who owns the brand, how does it run? Is it just fragrance and fragrance related products, like candles, bath products, things like that? Room diffusers are a huge thing that fragrance houses love. And then there's the more like the style of the composition, being a little bit more risky, pushing more boundaries. And I think that for me, it just depends. It's really hard. I'll use Atelier Cologne. Atelier Cologne is a corporate conglomerate owned niche house. And I think that what they do with citruses is so not the norm for designer fragrances. So even though their citrus fragrances are very easy to wear, very easy to understand, they're not risky fragrances. I don't really like recommending blind buys, but if I were to recommend a niche house for like blind buy safety, like you'll probably most likely be able to wear and appreciate the scents from this house above any other, I would probably say Atelier Cologne is one of the safest fragrance houses to blind buy from. I'm not saying you should. And just because that they're wearable, kind of more crowd-pleasing citrus fragrances doesn't mean that they don't smell different and a little bit riskier, and their composition is completely different than the other citrus-dominated fragrances in the designer world. So just because a fragrance is niche doesn't mean it's going to be challenging. It just means that it's going to be in regards to composition, probably a little bit different than something else. There's also a lot of really classic compositions that you see in designer fragrances and, you know, more mainstream niche houses, and then the more kind of riskier niche houses. You know, you have ambery fragrances, you have chypres, you have woody aromatics, you have the more aquatic fragrances, things like that. So, I mean, just because something says it's niche doesn't mean it's going to be challenging, and just something says something is designer doesn't mean it's going to be worth the price point. You probably find something cheaper someplace else. I don't know. So I think the biggest difference when it comes down to niche and designer is the price point. And obviously, indie fragrances and luxury fragrances are going to vary in price. Now, to me, indie fragrances are just a step below in regards to marketing the niche. These are usually owned by one or a few people. Some of them are well-beloved, well-respected fragrances, but I find that they're reaching the masses. Their reach isn't as much as more niche fragrances. Their marketing budget is a little bit smaller. So you have Black Phoenix Alchemy Labs, you have Cinny's Labs, you have the Parlor Company. There's a lot of other amazing indie houses out there. I don't want to say the names because sometimes I say a name and then I realize that the house isn't around anymore. These fragrance houses are well respected. Their fragrances are beautiful, and sometimes their fragrances are pricey and sometimes they aren't. And I find that these fragrance houses get a lot of respect in the community from people that like to support indie and artisanal fragrances, and I think that they definitely deserve that support and love. But from a marketing standpoint, they don't reach the masses as some of these more indie niche houses that spend a little bit more time investing in the reach that their fragrances have in regards to maybe sending fragrances to influencers or reaching out to bloggers, or, you know, kind of the reach that some of these fragrance houses have. It doesn't mean that indie fragrances are lesser in any way at all. They are not. They deserve the same amount of respect, and sometimes even a little bit more. But when I'm talking about niche houses, I'm talking about like niche houses. I'm not removing indie from that kind of glomp. They're just kind of like on a separate side of their own. They're on the other side of the playground doing their own thing and killing that. So niche fragrance category can also contain, like it can contain indie fragrances, can also contain luxury fragrances. So for me, a luxury fragrance isn't just a price point, it's also what does the fragrance smell like and what is the experience. Just because a fragrance is expensive does not mean it's going to smell good. And I do understand that a lot of the money put behind luxury is the prestige of owning it, and also on the packaging and experience. Now, when I look for the quality of luxury fragrances, a lot of people have their own way of justifying a luxury purchase, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you justify it this way. No. Especially when you're spending like over $150 to $200 on a bottle. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, you're wrong for thinking this way. This is how I do it. No, that's not how this works. However you justify purchasing a fragrance, the only person that matters is you. That's it. But for me, if I'm looking to spend, you know, for me, a luxury purchase of fragrance, and again, this is coming from luck, this is coming from blessings, this is really the only way I spend my money. When I justify spending a purchase of a fragrance, if it's over, like say $250 to $300, there's certain criteria it has to meet in regards to how it smells, the type of fragrance that it is. You know, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on this type of scent because I have so many of them, there's no need. Or just, you know, ingredients, presentation, and experience. You know, so for me, if I spend between $100 to $200 on a bottle of perfume, I really don't think too much about it. That does not mean that is correct for everybody. Just letting you know. And in a lot of cases, I'm also taking advantage of sales and coupons or reward points. So even if I'm spending $200 and it's like reward points, I'm still justifying the purchase as this is still $200. So if I have like some gift cards, you know, at the end of the year when I cash in my Amex gift cards, and I might have like $1,000 worth of gift cards from cashing it in, I'm still going to use the same justification of purchasing this fragrance, whether or not the money's leaving my bank account or if I'm using gift cards. It's the same justification no matter what. So for luxury fragrances, to me, that are worthwhile, if they're not unique, new, creative, ingenious compositions, the composition has to be something to me that warrants spending a lot of money. For me, it's more of an experience in regards to how does this smell? Is this transportive? Does it smell luxurious? And that's a whole other video. So we're not going to go into that because I don't want this video to be too crazy long. And also the presentation. Now the presentation, it doesn't have to be dripping in gold, doesn't have to have jewels embedded in it, but you know, the sprayer has to work really well, the cap has to be on it, and please let the label be straight. Because there's been some like luxury bottles I've gotten and I'm like, that label isn't crooked. Like, how dare you? Like, I spent $300 on this bottle. You can at least put the sticker on straight, please, and thank you. You know, that's kind of like what I mean, is the entire experience from lifting up the bottle and spraying it, like, it has to be a good sprayer. You know, the entire experience has to be worthwhile. So like a fragrance house that I love, that a lot of people, rightfully so, don't think is worth the money, is Raja. Raja and Clive Christian are two houses that are ridiculously expensive, like woof, crazy expensive. And a lot of people are like, why the hell would you spend that much money on that? Well, for me, what I justify in regards to purchasing from those houses specifically, I'm not looking for anything new. I'm looking for the best of the best. So it's like when you go to the produce store and there's a whole bunch of apples, I'm looking for the shiniest, reddest, most delicious, like firm, crispy looking apple. That to me is what Clive is. That to me is what Raja is. I'm looking for that. I'm not looking for a dragon fruit in there. I'm not looking for a kumquat. You know, keep that durian out of there, please and thank you. I'm looking for the most delicious looking apple, and that's the one I'm going to pick, and that's the one I'm going to spend my money on. That's what I'm looking for when I look for specific houses. Very expensive bottles. We're talking about $500 to $1,000, sometimes $3,000 bottles of fragrance. Now, I have actually tried on multiple occasions and wore Raja's $3,500 bottle of perfume, Haute Luxe. And let me tell you, whether or not you agree with me, and I think every one of you will disagree with me, I actually ridiculously love that scent. And if I had the money to spend on it, I would buy it. True. I mean it. I don't have it. That is out of my budget. I mean, I could, but I wouldn't be able to spend anything else because that's like my budget for fragrance for like 2 to 3 months. And like for me, I'd rather experience other things. That doesn't mean that if I didn't have the opportunity to buy it, I wouldn't. I would. And that doesn't mean people will think I'm an idiot, because I probably am. But that's a bottle that is on my would love to own at some point, because I just think that fragrance smells amazing and it smells so good on my skin. But like, let's just look at Raja's general price point of scents. Generally, they're between like $300 to $500. Some of them are like $1,000. So when we're looking at that price point, I want it to not just smell good. I want it to smell the best version of that composition, the best version of a woody aromatic, this best beautiful rose, this gorgeous chypre. You know, it needs to smell the best version of that. It needs to have a little bit more layers of complexity. It has to have pretty good performance. I don't really care too much about longevity. It is not a deciding factor. But if a fragrance only lasts like an hour on my skin, that's different. Like if it has no longevity, that's a completely different story. But for me, when I look at spending luxury fragrances, I'm looking at that. But in defining what a luxury fragrance is, there's a lot of these houses that are niche houses that are also considered luxury. And so you have those houses that I'm just going to throw out and that just regurgitate words. Is obviously you have Creed. There is, some people would assume like Acqua di Parma. I think they're more corporate niche. You have Memo Paris, you have MAXAROMA, you have Xerjoff, you have Atelier des Noix, you have Tiziana Terenzi, and the other fragrances that he creates. Quinto Canto is fantastic. Le Labo would be considered kind of luxury, even though I consider them more corporate niche. And again, the price point's pretty high. You know, luxury fragrances, Tom Ford might be considered luxury, Chanel, even though they're more designer. I would consider fragrances like Raja, Xerjoff, MAXAROMA, Royal Crown Perfumes, Atelier des Noix. There's a lot of other amazing houses out there that I'm not listing, but those are the ones that at least most people can kind of gravitate towards. Clive Christian, Raja, obviously. as like, yes, expensive, yes, crazy expensive. But that doesn't mean that they're not worth the money. It just means that people don't want to afford it. And that's not a problem, because if somebody has like, say, $500 for a fragrance budget, you know, maybe they were given a gift card to Saks, they might want to get the most bang for their buck rather than buying one bottle of perfume. Just because you have the ability to purchase it doesn't mean that you want to afford it because it's not worth it to you. And I think with luxury fragrances, a lot of people are realizing that there's amazing fragrances out there that are a lot cheaper where you can get close to the near experience. So why would I pay the extra money for a fancy cap and a pretty box that's going to sit in my closet? And I think that that's fine. But luxury niche fragrances and luxury designer fragrances are definitely a category of scents that people kind of really are kind of snobby about. I get this. Not as much as I used to, but when I first started posting on Instagram, I would post like, you know, I'm wearing this Amouage, I'm wearing this Xerjoff, I'm wearing this Clive, and then I would wear a Demeter, and people would be like, why are you wearing that when you own Le Labo and Creed? And I'm like, because I want to. You know, there's nothing wrong with liking cheap fragrances, just like there's nothing wrong with liking expensive fragrances. I mean, people think I'm a fool for what I spend on some of my scents, and I don't think they're incorrect. I think more what it has to do with is that some people collect and appreciate fragrances for different ways based on a specific category. Some people wear scents for utilitarian purposes. And I think when you look into what is niche, what is designer, what is luxury, what is indie, I think that when you're wearing a fragrance for utilitarian purposes, those fly out the window. Because honestly, you don't need to worry about what nose created your scent, or, you know, when was this composition reformulated, what's the best reformulation, or I only wear designer, I only wear niche, I only wear indie. You're like, this smells good, and I'm good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think when we look into what is niche, what is designer, a lot of the kind of discourse around it almost has to do with this level of one-upmanship, this level of I'm better than you than this reason. And it's one of the things in the community that I don't like. And I think this part of the conversation we're going to have is going to be very polarizing. And I've talked about it before when I was defending larger collections, and I talk about it before in a variety of different videos, and like what makes somebody a valuable voice in the community. First has to do with honesty. If you're honestly reviewing, talking about something, whether or not, you know, you're coming across as harsh or no filter, because I get that a lot. If you're sharing your honest opinion, I don't think that is wrong. And I think when people are kind of battling between designer and niche, it's a battle of what is worth more. So with niche, you're spending more money, and with designer, in a lot of cases, you're getting more value. And the perceived value placed on fragrances has to do with your overall experience when you wear it. And a lot of people, the experience is confidence. And a lot of confidence comes from, you know, like outside compliments. So a lot of people need this verbal validation from people that they smell good. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to say that that is incorrect. If compliments are something that's important to you and you're spending $50 to $100 to $500 on a bottle of perfume, I think that there's nothing wrong with saying that isn't worth it because I don't get it. Who's calling me? Oh, it's a spam. Hold on. Sorry, I get lots of spam calls. So like if that's important to you, and I did a whole video talking about compliments, and if I remember what the video is called, I'll link it below. But like if that's your validation, then I feel like that's where a lot of the discourse comes from, because like I feel like most designer fragrances by design, by formula, by the algorithm to create these fragrances are designed to be mass appealing, crowd pleasing fragrances. And in a lot of cases, those are the fragrances that are going to get compliments, because through focus groups and think tanks and marketing and research, they found that this formula of fragrance is going to gather compliments, and that's going to get them talked about in these communities, and that's what are going to keep people from purchasing over and over and over again. And I think the niche people are looking at it less utilitarian, more kind of like signature scent, smelling different, you know, kind of being more personal in regards to, I don't smell like everybody else. And I think that's where they're kind of coming from, is like, well, everyone smells like you, so yeah, you're gonna get compliments, but the next guy that walks past that girl that you wanted to flirt with, she's gonna compliment him too because he smells the same. And it's just this battle, and I think that I understand, but I also don't agree with it. This is going a little bit off topic, but I think that to assume that a fragrance is going to elicit a relationship with a man or a woman that you want is not going to be the main factor. It could be a deciding factor because for some people scent is very important, and you know, it could start a conversation. You know, you might be at a club or at a party and you might be wearing a very strong scent and you want to talk to a girl, and that could be an icebreaker. She could compliment your fragrance and then you can win her over with your charm and respect, you know, and your good looks and your fashion, whatever fashion is. I don't know what fashion is. I wear clothes from the thrift store. So sitting here and saying that fragrance can't play a key part in attracting a partner, a mate, a fling, it could be the conversation starter, the icebreaker. I see fragrance doing more of that than just kind of winning over any damsel that you want to woo just because you smell like a specific wood and citrus. I think that that's pretty much going to be more about projection. It's going to put you ahead of the game to maybe start a conversation. It's going to make you a little bit more peacocky, a little bit more big, a little bit more plumed and puffed up, a little bit more likely to grab attention. It's not going to be the reason why you woo that young lady, but it'll probably help. And I think that smelling good and smelling attractive and smelling attention grabbing is something that a lot of people like. I get unsolicited comments on fragrance. I'm not the best looking chick in the world. I don't think every guy that comes up to me and says he likes the way I smell is trying to get in my knickers. That's not how it works. I just think people like to generally smell good, and when somebody smells someone that smells nice, it's generally kind of like, hey, I like how you smell. It's just kind of like when people comment on my blue hair. I like your hair. I don't think they're trying to get anywhere. I just think that they're being polite. And I think that when you can smell something, I think people are likely to respond to it. So I can understand where beastly fragrances that have fantastic longevity can be important. And I did kind of talk a little bit about this before on my most complimented fragrances, the fragrances that I complimented on. And weirdly enough, they're Sauvage and Angel. And so I think even somebody was like, oh, it's just Sauvage and Angel. And I was like, well, it makes sense. Those two fragrances perform like beasts and are very distinctive. So they're not going to be like a type of fragrance that you can't smell or doesn't kind of project in a way where it overpowers other fragrances around it. So obviously by, you know, the law of averages, those are going to be the ones I'm going to compliment the most. So if you're looking for the law of averages, the type of fragrances that will grab you attention, they are probably going to be designer fragrances. And I think that's why a lot of weight and love and emphasis and priority is put on designer fragrances. And I think niche people are kind of like, but this is what we want. And I think with niche, it's kind of more the artisanal, the more attention grabbing in a distinctive, unique way. And most niche fragrances are going to smell different. They're going to smell attention grabbing in a way that might not be complimentary. I mean, there's some niche fragrances out there that I love to wear that are terribly challenging. And I've kind of talked about this before. I like to wear challenging fragrances because I was bullied growing up, and I know I didn't smell bad, but they knew that that was something I was very sensitive about. And so for the longest time, I put a lot of emphasis on smelling good. I mean, I was wearing body lotions. I was showering 3 times a day. I put deodorant on like 6 times a day. I was spraying myself with Happy, spraying myself with Body Shop or Bath & Body Works mist, and green tea. I know I smelled good. But now that I've kind of took control of, knowing that a lot of my love for fragrances and the importance of fragrances was because of this bullying and this childhood growing up, I now kind of find it more empowering to smell more challenging. That doesn't mean I smell bad, but I don't look for compliments. That's not what's important to me right now. And I think with niche fragrance people, they want to smell good and they want to feel validated in regards to their fragrance purchases, and their validation is different, not completely different, but different than designer fragrance lovers in regards to the people who are like, I only wear designers, like the people that are vocal about designer fragrances only, and the people that are vocal with niche fragrances only. There's people that just like fragrances. They don't care. They're like, I don't care how much this fragrance costs. It costs $10 for this body mist. I could spend $50 on this fragrance over here. I found this one at Marshall's. I don't care who made it, but the box was open and I sprayed it and I liked it, so I bought it. You know, I think this idea of what is better, this niche in designer, has to do more with personal validation than anything else. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because again, there's no reason to feel bad about how you participate in this community. Just because somebody has a larger collection, smaller collection, a collection of just designer fragrances, a collection of just celebrity fragrances, a collection of just decants, just luxury, just high-end, really it doesn't matter. What matters is, like, you like scent, it's something that's important to you, and it's, you know, something that you want to participate in. You want to have discussions, you want to try new things. And trying new things doesn't mean going out of your comfort zone. It doesn't mean that just because you're not going to wear this fecal animalic oud fragrance that you're less of a fragrance enthusiast. Or just because somebody wants to smell aquatic doesn't mean that they aren't going to participate a beautiful ambery gourmand. I think that there's a lot of different reasons why people participate in this community, and a lot of people get very riled up around definitions rather than just kind of realizing that we all just want to smell distinctive, special, and amazing. And for some people that might be more challenging, for some people that might be more mainstream, but there's no wrong way to, I mean, there is wrong ways to smell, but for the most part, for the small little outliers, for those cheeky perfumers and cheeky brands, for the most part, there's really no wrong way to smell. As long as you're participating in a way that is not harmful for you or others, I think that that's fine. So if you want to wear just designer fragrances, if compliments are important to you, if not spending a lot of money but getting a lot of bang for your buck is important for you, then go the designer route, go the body route, the body mist route, you know, go finding cheapies. You know, for some people it's also how much you spend. You know, some people don't even want to look at people who pay full retail, and then some people who pay full retail are idiots. I mean, there's so much discourse in every community, but I think for me, when it comes down to designer fragrances and luxury fragrances and niche fragrances, I think that everybody has very valid reasons for liking and collecting and being passionate about one side or the other. And I think if you think about the reasons why you want to smell the way that you do, as when you're really going to kind of think about what side you would take. But you also know you don't have to take a side. So if you're the type of person that wants to really focus on, I'd say, compliment, more mainstream, crowd-pleasing scents, if you're the type of person that doesn't want to push your budget too hard but get a lot of bang for your buck, I think sticking with designer fragrances, at least in the beginning, or maybe looking for more affordable niche fragrances, like say Atelier Cologne, Nest, Clean is really great. I'd say depending too on the fragrance, I don't think Acqua di Parma is crazy out of the realm of budget for a lot of people. It is pricey, but it's not like insanely pricey, like above Chanel prices. Depending on the size of the bottle you get, it's not bad. But if you want to like support the more artisanal side, the kind of more creative, like coming up with new creative compositions, kind of pushing boundaries, I think that if you don't have a big budget, try out some indie houses. A lot of their fragrances are very affordably priced, or at least for the most part, you're not going to be spending hundreds of dollars on an ounce of perfume. Or if you kind of want to explore and support the more kind of like artisanal side, there's some amazing niche houses out there. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is just your preferences. I think the battle of niche and designer is a war that's never going to end. And I also think that the definition of niche and designer is something that over time is going to change and move. Obviously, there's a definitive designer definition and a definitive niche designer. So there is a black and white in regards to niche and designer, but there's a whole lot of gray. And I think that rather than worrying about where your fragrance fits in, figure out what makes you happy, what fits your budget, and what fits your, your ideals in regards to why you wear scent. Are you wearing scent to make an impression? Are you trying to find a signature scent that makes you stand out? Are you trying to attract the mate? Are you just trying to smell good? Are you trying to uplift your mood? Are you trying to smell good? Are you trying to smell challenging and to really anger your workmates? Because if that's what you're looking for, I've got recommendations. But for the most part, when it comes down to participating in this community, everybody is valid. And just because somebody prefers niche over designer doesn't make them better than anybody else. But I think that this, what is niche and what is designer, is something that is a discussion that we're going to have for a very long time. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys my opinion on what is niche, what is designer. You have your definitive answers, like, over here you have zoologist, and over here you have Chanel, and then you have your kind of gray area like Lancome and Guerlain, and then you have your corporate niche fragrances, and then your independent indie houses that are owned by one person, and they make amazing scents, but nobody knows about them because they spend all their money on fragrances and creating new things, and they don't have much left in marketing, so they don't have a huge lot of outreach, but they're really underappreciated and they really deserve more sales. Yeah. This is the type of video where I could talk in circles for another 2 hours. And I feel like I talked in circles. I feel like I left a lot out, and I think definitely the beginning of the video is not the same as how I ended this video, but I think I'm gonna end the video here because I kind of discussed with you guys my definition of what I think a niche designer is, the kind of gray area in between, and also the importance of just fragrance, kind of talking to you guys about why I think people go one way or the other. And again, this is a discussion. I would love to know what you guys think. What is your definition of niche and designer? What do you guys think of this whole niche snob, designer, elitist fragrance? And also just what do you think about this in general? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for sitting through this long video, and I hope you guys have a great day.